Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and welcome to Principles of Management 223, offered as a hybrid class or an online class or a face-to-face class you're taking with me. This is a short overview, 20 minutes like flipping the classroom, just to present the highlights. You'll be doing the connect homework and the debate and the discussion within the classroom so you really understand this. But remember, so I'm going to flip on this real quickly from the current slide. We've done the presentations. Okay, so decision making and learning and creativity and entrepreneurship. What does that have to do with management? All of this is what makes me as a manager effective and efficient. When I look at the entrepreneurship, the same skills we learn from Intro to Business or throughout this chapter is that as a manager, a middle manager, I have to be an entrepreneur. I have to come up thinking out of the box, thinking new ideas. So if I look at I provided you a concept map. Utilize the concept map is at the second level. So you'll actually, when you're reading the book, looking at this presentation, add on to the other level in your own words how you remember. The concept map does not take away from you reading the information. The concept map or the mind map is there to help you remember information. This is about when you look at the concept maps and the areas I've identified within this conceptual map, it takes about like 30 to the power point, but in one easy readable paper. Okay, so the first thing you're going to look at two different types of decision processing. First of all, reasoning. Reason is very logical. When we're going to go into the chapter, we're going to be talking about rational model and non-rational. The rational model basically is more of a program, so it makes the reasons I go over. I kind of logically could identify the problem and logically could find an alternative. But the other part of the information process or the decision making process is the intuitive or the intuition, and that part I have to use when I'm doing non-program, those non out of the box different types of problems that's come up that there's no solution because it's something new. So there I have to use my creativity and utilize my intuition, I still utilizing rational decision making, but I'm using more of the intuitive side to help me find up a different alternative because it's never been done this way before, or there isn't a problem like that. So decision making basically responds to opportunities or threats that confront them by analyzing the options and making the determination and specific organizational goals and courses of action. This is the regular definition. My concept map basically is just a shorter version of that. Okay, so there's different decision-making styles, and I'm going to go through it. And I'm not going to go real in depth. You could read the book, but when I look at analytical, conceptual, directive, behavior, when I had the concept map, we all at one time use different styles, but we have a preference to use one over the other. Directive, people are efficient, logical, practical, systematic in their approach, action-oriented, and that works well for program decisions or for the program or the rational decision making. Okay, and then analytical, I have to look at all the aspects. Conceptual, I look at the broad perspective. I look at the whole company. And behavioral, supportive. You know, when I make a decision, even though it can make the rational it makes sense, but how will the team accept it? So I may have to make some modification to my decision. So basically, I'm looking at the behavioral output or how my team members or the individuals that are going to be affected by the decision are going to be respond to it. Okay, so and basically the classical model based on assumption that prescription approach to decision making, decision maker can identify excuse me, identify and evaluate all possible alternatives. That's in some cases I could do that. I already know what's going to happen, and the consequence, and then I could have choose the best course of action. This is a lot of times when we read about the bureaucratic, administrative type. Is that we already if this happens, you respond to this. If this happens, this is how you're going to respond. You see some kind of things like this on life support inside of a hospital. They have rules and procedures, standard operating procedures, for lack of better words. Okay, so that's the rational decision model. You got to identify the problem, think of alternatives, evaluate the solutions, and pick the best solution, implement them, and then you look at feedback. And when you identify the problems and evaluate different solutions, remember you have more than one way to solve the problem. So you most likely, when you're looking at the group and you're coming up with which is the best alternative, you're picking one that's the best. But as you're going in here and you're looking at this feedback area, And if something's not going the right way, you don't say, "Oh my goodness, wait till the end," and you know it's going to fail. You start going to the other alternatives and bring your second best choice, or maybe some aspects from the second best choice, and you start changing. Remember, it's a growing process depending on the environment, depending on I come up with alternatives, I put it in, and it didn't play out the way I wanted it to. So I have to make some adjustments. I don't wait to the other end. And this is from the book. It's just from a visual way of looking at the same thing. And this is from the other instructor that was teaching this. He or she had, and I kind of like this for alternative. You look like a brainstorming or a Gantt chart. You look at the Delphi methods, the interactive written creative leap to go backward, forward, and basically the whole thing brainstorming. And we've done this in a lot of the classroom. I'd write up on a board, or when you're going to be doing your presentation for this for uh, Bob's Meltdown that we're doing this week, and you're going to come up with this as a team. You're going to be utilizing this kind of method. You're going to think together. We all came up with our own solution, but now as a team member, you're going to put it together. Okay, program decisions, routines, standard operating procedure. I'm not going to go into it. You've already been exposed to it. It's just real quickly. It's something I could develop rules. What happens when my dummy light goes on? It says overheating. I pull over. I know there's something wrong. I don't have to think about, is it really working? It's already saying at this temperature, the car has only so much longer before it's going to shut down because it's going to automatically overheat. So you're going to have problems, okay? And then if I'm looking at common decision-making biases, availability bias, I just pick up the best solution. Confirmation bias, when people seek information, I already know what the decisions I want to make, so I'm now looking for something to support that decision. Instead of going through the process, I selected the first representative bias, tendency to generalize from a small sample, and that's when you look at for statistics, when they say, hey, it's statistically sound, I always will look, what's the sample size? And when I look at the sample size, it should be a good percentage of the total population, which would make it provide me validity within the statistical analysis. And second cost, sometimes we spend too much money into it and we don't want to get out of it, so we keep on pumping more money because of our pride or whatever. And anchoring adjustment, tendency to make decisions based on initial figure. Here's my decision. You see a lot of times politicians, say it's going to cost me so much, and then we're going to stick with this, even though I know the costs are rising, but I'm going to still say, no, in my mind, it's only going to cost me so much. In reality, I'm over 20% or 100% over my initial cost. An acceleration of commitment occurs when the decision makers increase their commitment to project despite negative responses. I'm still going to go with it, even though it's not the best way. And if I look at why information is important, if I have all the information, that is where I want to be. But in reality, I don't have all the information. I can't wait for all the information because the environment is changing. So I'm going to take so much information, I'm going to make certain assumptions, and I'm going to go with the intuition. I'm not saying guessing. I'm taking a rational decision. I'm looking at the intuitive side, what my spirit, my heart's telling me to do. And after you've been doing it a while, you kind of have a good feeling. If I look at Buffett, or if I look at a lot of the President Obama or some of them are doing it with initiative. I think we could work with it. Not guessing. They're just doing their best feeling. I said, I know it's going to happen, okay? So now, where most of our decisions as a manager is going to end up is a non-program decision. It's novel approach, threats, something that hasn't been. I don't know how to respond to this. We know everything else that happened. All of a sudden, there's a new illness, or there's a new sickness, or there's a new competitor coming in that we never had to face before. How are we going to respond to that? So we got to come out of the box critical thinking, okay? And then when I look at the critical thinking, the satisficing incremental model, intuition, and this is some of the non-rational decision-making items or features or attributes that you should be looking at within the book. And the bounded rationality suggests that the ability of decision-making to make rational is limited by numerous constraints, okay? The other one is satisfying. Sometimes we just make a decision, make it go away. That is not the best decision. That's not a compromise. You should make the best decision. Remember, you're not making a decision for yourself. You're making a decision for the overall, for the organization. As a manager, you're making decisions for your employees, but your stockholders, right, that are paying you, and you're making it for the organization. So sometimes I may have to give up something for my team because it makes better sense for the overall organization to be successful. Because if the team, look, if I'm in one department and the whole company's failing, and I have a way to change it, but I don't want to give away that secret or change my process, once the company's gone, my department, everybody's gone. So, okay, so that takes care of the non-rational. And then if I'm looking at, so now I have the non-program decision making. To do this, I had to be a creative individual. Creativity. And that's what I debate. Can I teach creativity? Where do I come up? I'm coming up with solutions that never been made before. How good is my decision? It has been tested. It'll only know after I implement it and did it return the result I wanted. If it didn't, they're going to tell me I did a poor decision. If I did, they're going to say, George, you're a miracle worker. You're out of the box thinker. Remember, your decisions are only as good as the outcomes that come back to you. All right, so you got to develop. So if I'm looking at it this way, I'm looking at his personal mastery, manages and empowers employees, and allows them to be creative and explore. You cannot be an autocratic type of manager and in the last minute say, okay, let's be friends now. Let's think creative. You have to instill this in your team as a manager, in your direct reports. In your direct reports, people working for you and people that work for them, they all have this. Learning organizations mentality. I could come up with new ideas to solve the problem and still stay within the boundaries and the rules and the regulations that the organization requires me as a manager and the company to operate within. And the mental models challenge employees to find new and better ways. Look, everyone could find a different way of solving the problem, but what is the best way? Okay, and then the other one's a team learning that takes place in a group. Okay, oops, sorry, I went to build, share vision. People share common mental model of a firm to evaluate opportunity. We have to start. Remember, we already went to team building. We went to the norming, to the storming. We went to to the forming, to the norming, to the storming, to the performing, and finally to the adjourning state. So everywhere in there, I'm already building my team to be creative, come up out of the box. This is what our standard procedure. Change the standard procedure. They don't apply anymore to the environment or the customers or to our employees. Okay, and then you share that kind of a mentality, that kind of creativity through the whole organization. It doesn't come overnight. You have to develop it. Systems thinking, and then knowing and understanding the action of one area of the firm will impact the actions of the other. Now, promoting group creativity. The biggest one is the easiest one is brainstorming. So if I look at brainstorming, the concept maps utilized here, you just put stuff on the board. And then after a while, everyone works in smaller groups. If I'm a larger groups, I think too much of a group think and everything else. So I break this up in different groups. And when I'm making up as a manager to different groups, like you're working on your projects in different groups, I kind of select the different groups. So I have someone that's creative, someone that's intuitive, someone that's rational, someone that's not rational, someone that's always question you, and that'd be my devil's advocate. So the group brainstorms, and then as small collective groups or breakout groups, I take all this information and then we look at a board. So every group is going to give me some input, and then we're gonna put on the board for group one did this, group two did this, group four did this, and then we try to find the common elements, and then we start breaking it down so we get the main common elements. We always identify what we think the problem is as a total group, and then we basically start working on action plans to resolve the issue and different alternatives. In a nutshell, sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad. Okay, so complexity, source of complexity, intangibles, important, difficult to measure, risk and uncertainty. You're always going to take a risk because it's never been done before. If you have all people that are very cautious, by the time you figure it out, the ship's already sunk, or the competitors already taken advantage of you. Long-term implementation. What I do now as a manager, I'm not a first-line supervisor, middle manager. So if I put the company in a different direction, it could have a long-term effect. So I got to be very careful what's going to be the long-term. And long-term right now in business could be 2-3 years, just a survival mode until we change. All right, but it's not going to be. But I still have to think what's going to happen to the long-term effect. If I tell people to cheat, but unethical, I get caught. Long-term effect, I'll be out of business, or I have a big lawsuit, and that's what JC Morgan is basically, for Chase Bank is basically having an issue with something else that the president of the company is doing some activities through the crisis and through the international fixing of rates and everything else. So that's giving them a bad rep. So people don't trust them anymore when they're a consultant because they're doing it for me to protect my image and help me be productive, or they're just doing it to line their pocket. And see, but they're working around this. It's still good, but they have a lot of baggage you got to clean up on that. Okay, so pull decision, value, and intended. Okay, so which one would you use? And then these are just some other things straight from the book. And then when you're looking at any kind of decision, you always got to look at it. Remember when we talked about ethics and everything else in earlier? earlier. Is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it economical? And is it practical? All these are part of my decisions. If it's legal, okay, next thing is it ethical? And ethical, a lot of times, remember, it could be legal but not ethical, but you're looking at the image and the brand of the organization. Am I, if I'm a survival mode just for making it, I might push the ethical envelope a little bit. But if everything is going right, I should be very ethical. Or if I push the, remember, it's what's my uh, stakeholder is going to see me as, okay, and how much input that has on that. Okay, and this is the decision tree. Is it legal? It's just another way of looking at it, utilizing a decision tree. And a lot of times it's software that you can plug the answers and it'll answer the questions until you come out to do it. Okay, and responses to a decision situation. What I want is the effective response. Here's the ineffective. Importance, priority. This is important. We have to make the decision. Credibility. Are they going to believe me if I come up with a solution? And urgency. You have to, and all this you're selling is in the decision. All this is going on with everything else we're looking at, with the non-program or the rational or the different alternatives and all the influences and everything else when I'm making a decision. Now, effective response to something that's an issue. Relax, avoidance, relax, change, defensive. No, it's not going to happen. It won't happen to me. It's just going to happen to my neighbor, but not to me, or panic, okay? So we have that. So if I'm looking at the decision, group decision making, I have a few more minutes. Superior to individuals, right? Choices less likely let's see, group decisions, superior to individual making, less likely to fall to victim of bias, able to draw on combined skills, feasibility. Now, this is the way the author talked about it. There's other studies that saying sometimes I can make a decision quicker, faster, and it'll be just as effective, but I don't get the buy-in. So remember, at this level here, at a middle manager, try to look at both sides. Both have some value to it, and it depends on the urgency, depends on the product, it depends which way I'm going forward. Let's say if I want to say I want to change the culture of an organization, most people, if I do it as a group, no, we like everything as it is, so I will make that decision because it makes sense going forward. So at that case, it would be an individual decision versus a group decision. But that depends on the situation, all right? So you try to utilize both. Can't take much longer, can be difficult to get two people to get, or manager agree. Ever been on a jury duty? And how we ever convict anyone is amazing. But remember, that's the whole thing. You have to convince other people that this person is guilty or this person is not guilty. And a lot of times people are just satisfied, yeah, it looks guilty. And you're going to have the one person that looking, you know what? But this case, there's something about it just I don't feel right. It's something about it. And you start digging. And now you all of a sudden you change the person's the whole group instead of just satisfying because it's quicker, get the heck out of here. You're actually making a quality decision by thinking it through, and then the group comes back and says not guilty. And if you're on the other side and your whole life depended on it, and because there was a technicality or there was something in there that was cloudy and it wasn't really brought out within the case that you did or you saw it but it was just passed over, that's what you should do to make sure that you have the right decision. And groupthink means after a while you've been with the individual so long and the group's been together, we just automatically just know what the other person is going to do. We don't even think about it. We like automatic pilot, so we become standard operating procedure. We just keep on stamping, boom, 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 and that is bad. So what happens a lot of times when a group, we pull one member in, we bring a new member in, and then when we do with the group, all of a sudden you go from the forming, the storming, the norming, the adjourning. Because what I did, I added another component, another individual's personality that could be completely different from the group, and the whole process starts and kind of shakes up things, or what we would call a devil advocate. If I look at devil advocate, a lot of times when we do the discussions within Blackboard, you've noticed I always I jump from one side to the other just to get the discussion going. In meetings, that's basically what I do. I'm like a devil's advocate. What about this? What about this? I may have already my idea which way I want to go, but I throw that in so I get other people within the group. Because remember, in the group, when you look at making a decision, you have your thinkers, and then you have your people like myself just throw information out. If I have all my thinkers, I don't know what's in their brains. They're thinking about it. So when I come out with some kind of a point, because the first thing in my mind, it may not be what I'm going to do, but it's the first thing that comes to mind. I'm just putting it out there, utilizing my creativity side on it. And the thinkers say, well, that's crazy. And now the thinkers just start talking. And now I got the thinkers and everyone working, so we know what everyone's thinking, and we can come up with the best solution. It's another item of like a devil's advocate in a dialectic inquiry. We just present different alternatives to a group, and they respond, and then we debate about them, and then we either accept them or don't accept them. A lot of that stuff is done online. And the characteristics of an entrepreneur is the same characteristics of a manager: open to experiences, internal locus of control. I understand myself. I have high esteem. I don't mind failures. I understand our failures. I can always pick up and shake the dust off and move forward. I have high need for achievement. I'm going to succeed. I keep on trying. If people know me, I'm like a Wolverine, little person, but once I grab a hold of anything, unless it's going to be completed, I will stick to it to the end. Okay? And the last thing, creativity can be learned. Unleash your creativity, energy, release the bounds of convention, show your self-confidence, avoid narrow thinking. That's it for this class, and for this chapter right now on decision making. You're doing very well in the class, and this is a quick 20-minute flip the classroom, just in case we didn't get enough time because we're doing busy this week, or if you just want to review what's important. Again, my name is Dr. George Mochocki. Welcome to Business 223, Principles of Management, either in a fully online class or a hybrid class or a face-to-face class that I'm teaching. And I'll talk to you in class or in the forum, or I'll see you in the video next time. Bye.